Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second meeting of our Graduation Requirements Task Force. My name is Robert Henderson. I'm the Ward 5 representative on the State Board of Education, and I'm co-chairing this task force along with Representative Ebony Rose Thompson of Ward 7. Tonight, we are going to focus much of our time talking about the Practical Studies Diploma. We have several guests. We are thankful to have Aussie here with us and a couple expert commenters to discuss. The screen that you see in front of you is the Mentimeter, which allows you to submit questions, which people have already started to do. So if you want to capture that QR code before we move off that slide, please do, and you can submit questions to that at any time during the meeting tonight. And giving you a second to catch that QR code, then we'll go to the welcome slide.
Yeah, I'll move off in about 10 seconds.
Okay, and I will also at this moment thank our state board staff, Haley Steed and Jen Briones, who are supporting all the behind the scenes and making this work. Anything that doesn't work, you can attribute to me and Ebony Rose. I'm sure doesn't mind. So thank you.
Slides up.
Got our slides up so that I remember what to say next. All right, so you see our agenda before us. We do have a few housekeeping things to talk about before we launch into the meat of the meeting. You can go ahead to the next slide, Haley.
There we go.
All right, we did just want to frame this meeting to set expectations. We are hoping to answer a lot of the questions that people have raised about the Practical Studies Diploma in our first meeting. There were a lot of questions and reactions, even opposition to the proposed Practical Studies Diploma. We want to dig in deeper. We want to make sure that we give Aussie a chance to tell us what the intent was, what exactly the proposal is, answer some questions. We have, as I said before, we have two invited guests to add to the conversation to inform our understanding of the proposal. We do want to make abundantly clear we're not deciding yay or nay on what the task force is going to recommend around the Practical Studies Diploma tonight. We are beginning this conversation. We saw that this was a topic that is going to need a lot of attention from us. And so we wanted to give ourselves the longest ramp possible for that discussion. So please don't feel like this is your last chance or the last time that we are going to be engaging on this topic. But we do hope that tonight will give us a lot of information, a lot of data to inform our work on this topic going forward. We can go to the next slide. We did want to note that last night, the state board at its public meeting hosted a panel on CTE, which is another topic that we will discuss relative to the graduation requirements for the task force. We wanted to especially thank Glenn Starnes from DCPS, who spoke on the panel to help us have a better understanding of what CTE options are available already in the district. And so we just wanted to lift that up and point you to the recording of that panel. And when we come back to CTE in future meetings, we can re-up this plug for that panel, and Haley will share the link for that presentation in the follow-up email from tonight. So thank you for that. So along with the work of the task force, the board is um, doing public engagement around the graduation requirements proposal, and we have three upcoming engagement dates that you can see here. We have a flyer that we will share with you and ask you to in turn share with your networks to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible with the opportunity to speak on these topics. You'll see there are two in-person opportunities and one virtual opportunity. We do want to say to the task force members, we are not expecting you to be at these engagements, but you are more than welcome to come. And whether you come or not, we really are leaning on you to help us. I mean, we're going to do our best to blast this information out and cast the net as wide as we can, but would really appreciate your help in doing that as well, since you are in touch with a lot of folks and represent a lot of folks. We are also working on a survey that we will share and have open for a longer period. And once that is finalized, we will share that with you and ask for your help in spreading that around too. And we also want to uh, restate our offer. If you have events for your organizations or um, kind of any forum where this makes sense for one of us to come and speak to a community group, let us know and we will work something out so that one of us can come and talk a little bit more about the work that we're doing, both as a task force and as the state board. And now I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Roof, who is the state board's communications director. I'm not sure I'm saying that title right. He does our communications and is going to share about this social media campaign and opportunity.
Hey, you guys. As Robert said, I am our agency's not communications director, but I am our public information officer. So I do a lot of our social media and media stuff. And I'm just here tonight to kind of let you guys know that we've been ideating on a like a short little social media campaign, primarily to kind of like raise awareness among the public of the meaningfulness of high school graduation requirements. And we really like want to reach out to you guys to see if we can get your help to help this go off. Really, our intention with it is to tell a story in human terms about how important these things, about how important graduation requirements are. And like what we're envisioning right now is a series of montage videos featuring you guys and people that you may recommend to us, um, telling stories based on prompts that we have written. And each of these videos will be about 90 seconds. And each individual contributor's video 5 to 10. And ultimately like what we want to do with that is kind of have those play on social media over the coming weeks and through the duration of the task force's meetings. And I'll share sorry, I will share further details with you guys tomorrow in an email, and would very much appreciate you guys being available to participate and helping us out with this. And to those who do express interest, I will share further details with you in a follow-up email. Does anybody have any questions for me or um, any comments?
Uh, Two comments. Uh,
Yeah.
Comment one, as far as like just so folks know, the why are we doing this? Um, I will speak for myself. I believe this is some of the most important work we are doing in this period as a board. And we want to make sure that the public understands that this is an opportunity for them to weigh in, and understands like the stakes of it. At the moment, we have um, not enough people who are graduating from DC schools who want to who are able to then like go on to careers in DC that is life-sustaining work, right? And the best way to say that is not in stats. It is not with a PowerPoint. It is with stories around why this work is important. And so we are leaning on you and encouraging you as the first offer, and of course, we as board members and others. But we would love if folks would be willing to lend their voices in their faces. And also, you are credible messengers to your networks. And so we want to encourage as much feedback as possible. If you do want support around this, of course, we'll have prompts and all the things. That is good. I also just want to lift up Kathy's question in the chat, and Representative Henderson is exactly right. Kathy asked about the engagement sessions and the purpose of them, as well as how the task force will get the information. And I just want to echo what Representative Henderson wrote. The purpose is not to sell. The purpose is to share. We never want to take for granted that folks know the discussions that are happening. We do want to make sure that as many people in the community are familiar with what is being proposed as possible and have an opportunity to weigh in and say what they love, what they hate, what they have questions about, all the different things. We want you all as task force members to be present. You are welcome to raise your voices in those rooms. You don't have to sit there and be quiet or stoic or, you all are welcome to fully participate. If folks have ideas where they're like, hey, I want to engage, I want to volunteer, I want to take notes, all those things are helpful, but it is not to sell, it is to share. As Representative Henderson noted in the chat, we will give an update as far as like the what came out of it at the next meeting. In addition to, I think we noted there will be a survey. And so it really is information gathering. You all will have access to all of what we collect because it is to inform our decision making more than anything else. And that is also why we have kind of two rounds of feedback. The first is to say, hey, this is what is proposed. The second will be to say, here's what we heard from you, assuming folks have input, suggestions, comments, concerns, and we will say how those things have been incorporated or changed or not. So folks have some sense of where our recommendation is moving. I hope that's helpful.
Any other questions for Andrew? Okay, he will send you an email tomorrow with more details, so you can reply to that if you're interested.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so we're gonna turn now to we are gonna have a period of presentation before we turn to open questions and discussion. So first, we're thankful that we have folks from OSSI who worked on this proposal to present it to us, so we know from their mouths what they are presenting, the intent. They can answer questions that we were not able to answer at our last meeting. Dr. Jones, of course, is a member of the task force, but she's also joined tonight by Christy Weaver Harris and Victoria Glick, who are who worked on the proposal, the practical studies diploma in particular. So we'll have them present first, and then we have Maria Bloyer, who's from Advocates for Justice and Education, join us. And thank you to Representative Johnson Law for suggesting Maria, along with some other folks who we can still call on if we need to. And also Dr. Amy Cepeda, who's the principal at River Terrace Education Campus. Thank you all for being with us. We are going to turn it now to Aussie, and I believe they have some, I see a note that Victoria will be joining a little bit later. Thank you. And I think you are able to share slides if that's your desire.
Yeah. All right. Can everyone see my slides?
Not yet.
No.
Oh, that's because I didn't click the right button. How about now?
Yes.
Good to go.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah,
All
thank
right. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Christy Weaver Harris. I'm the policy manager in the Office of Special Education at OSSI. My team works on regulations, policies, and guidance, specifically governing special education in the district. And we have been working on developing this specific proposal for quite a few months now, but this is an idea that we have been pursuing for years. One of the first research projects that I did when I started at OSSI in 2012 was to research diploma options for students with disabilities. So this is work that we have been anticipating and have been so excited to be able to engage in, and we want to make sure we get it right. So I'm going to give you an overview of what this diploma is and what we're trying to do here. And I'm really excited to get your feedback and your recommendations on how we can improve it and how we can really serve these students. And I fully agree with what was said earlier about we really do want to hear the pros, the cons, the criticisms, the changes. Like we're very committed to that. All right. So this diploma is intended to provide an additional pathway to opportunity for students with disabilities to prepare for the workforce, continuing education, and independent living by engaging in modified courses that are focused on occupational skills and application-based curricula. The Practical Studies Diploma is designed to fill a gap for students for whom an IEP certificate of completion is insufficiently rigorous, but whose disability makes them unable to attain a standard diploma. This is a subset of students with disabilities who can do more than an IEP certificate, but less than a standard diploma, and are currently either dropping out with no credential or getting an IEP certificate that does not transfer into meaningful post-secondary education or work. These are students who face significant barriers in traditional learning environments, who participate in a heavily modified curriculum, and whose post-school plans include employment or job training. So the diploma is intentionally designed to include a broad swath of student characteristics to allow IEP teams the appropriate flexibility to determine the best diploma option for each student based on that student's individualized needs. But we have prepared some example student profiles to help illustrate what our thinking is here. All right, so this is our first target student, Jay. He's a 16-year-old student who's been identified with multiple disabilities of intellectual disability and orthopedic impairment. Jay spent the last 2 years at a public charter school where he was in a self-contained program working towards a certificate of completion. This program with his school was developed for students who demonstrate below average cognitive skills and need classes that are designed to teach and assist students in all aspects of living, focused on living as independently as possible. So this includes basic and functional academics, pre-vocational skills, and functional daily living skills. Jay's been excelling in his classes and has made great progress on his IEP goals. His school team has been able to integrate him into general education electives with significant support and modification. They found a successful combination of support after he had some regression in taking a foreign language class. The rigor of that work combined with the complicated subject area was overwhelming for him, and he briefly regressed both academically and behaviorally. Jay is a very proud and engaged member of the school community. He has excellent attendance. He has many friends, both in and out of his classes. He participates in school activities, and he doesn't let his physical limitations hinder his motivation to be involved in school. So while Jay does not have the skills to achieve a standard high school diploma, he would benefit from a diploma option that allows him to transition into a job or job training program. So that's a little bit of background on Jay. We have a second student also. Our second student is B. She is a 17-year-old student identified with an emotional disability. She's been attending a non-public school for the last 3 years. And while she's made progress on her social and emotional goals, she continues to make minimal progress academically. So with very heavy modification to her curriculum, she was able to earn credits in English 1 and 2, World History 1, Art, Music, PE, and some electives. But her deficits in reading and math have really affected her ability to pass higher level courses. This caused her social and emotional goal process to start regressing. She's interested in attending a workforce development program to do early childhood education. With 3 younger siblings, she's always had a passion as a caregiver, and she needs a diploma in order to enroll in the program to get her her CDA, if she can, her Child Development Associate, to work in a daycare. With school and family pressures, B is considering dropping out. Her regression in behavior has triggered further depressive symptoms, and she is having trouble seeing a future where she can earn what she needs to be able to be independent in her life. And these 2 student profiles are based on actual students that our office has engaged in. We've fudged some of the specifics, but these are based on actual students that we have encountered in the last, I would say, 2 years. Where we have tried to provide enough support to get these students the credits that they need without placing them in more restrictive settings unnecessarily, and where we have really felt stuck with what their options were in the real world. So to give you an overview of the Practical Studies Diploma itself, if you've read the proposal, you've seen a lot of this. So the 2 primary components of the Practical Studies Diploma include modified course requirements and then an occupational or job-focused component. First, with modified course requirements, you can think of these as as course substitutions for the core areas, but I hesitate to use the word substitution because we didn't want to mislead people in thinking that you would be substituting core requirements for the standard diploma in order to achieve the standard diploma. So we call them modified course requirements. We would retain the same 24 total credit hours with some movement within the core areas. Students would take different courses based on their post-secondary transition plan with a focus on application-based courses or functional courses that focus on life skills, post-secondary preparation, and employability skills. So those modified credits would be determined by the IEP team, including the student and the parent, using guidance that would be developed through a collaborative process. We envision engaging a working group of LEAs, other stakeholders, parents, advocates in order to inform that guidance. We really want the guidance driven by the folks who are closest to the students. We're really committed to that. For the occupational component, students would focus those course modifications on courses and experiences to support them in obtaining the knowledge and skills that they need to pursue their post-secondary plans. Again, we're looking to emphasize application-based and life skills courses, and within the electives, students would take at least 1 credit of an experiential or hands-on learning component. So that could be internships, job training, job shadowing in some instances. A goal of this work would be to increase access for students with disabilities to CTE programming or workforce development opportunities that mirrors the pre-employment or transition coursework that they would be engaging in. So the Practical Studies Diploma also has alignments to the main features of the standard diploma with some modifications that I wanted to highlight here. First, instead of having 3 touch points with an advisor, we would leverage the existing post-secondary transition planning process that's part of the annual IEP process to ensure that students have annual touch points with the IEP team, including an advisor. So this is a process that's already going on, as any of you in special education know. But that is how we would satisfy the intentional touch points around post-secondary planning. Second, for the capstone project, students would complete a project portfolio or experience-based learning opportunity that would be connected to the DC grad profile and the student's secondary transition plan. So the intention here was just to give slightly more flexibility in how the student completes that project and demonstrates their knowledge and skills. And third, we heard throughout all of our stakeholder engagement that folks wanted access to those endorsement options. So students earning the practical studies diploma would still be able to access the endorsement options. The modification that we made here relates to the CTE endorsement, where students would be able to earn a micro-credential by completing a cohesive component of an approved CTE program of study. So instead of the 3 to 4 courses that those require, these students, for example, would be completing 2. But those would be a predefined subset of the existing programs of study. So this is the graphic that we've developed to show the credential options for students with disabilities. On the left, we have the IEP certificate of completion, which, as you can see, is a very low credit requirement. In the middle column are the proposed requirements for the standard diploma, and on the right are the proposed requirements for the practical studies diploma. And we've denoted changes from the standard diploma in red. The practical studies diploma would require the same number of total credit hours as the standard diploma, but IEP teams would substitute courses in each core area. Students would not be required to earn world language credits. That's the big change that you'll see between the two. But the number of electives is increased to account for that. I saw a question earlier about why the increase in electives, and that's to account for the decrease in the world language. But students, again, would take different or modified courses based on their plans. And we intend to focus on application-based courses or functional courses that focus on life skills. But IEP teams would have flexibility to determine the appropriate courses aside from DC history. We still want students taking DC history. But in terms of like math, science, social studies other than DC history, IEP teams would be determining what courses students take. And again, that would be using guidance that we develop alongside LEAs and parents, families, advocates, our stakeholders, our usual stakeholders. So that's really the overview. I see there's some questions in the chat. Yes, I see Christina's question where this matches what she had said last month, that practical studies diploma could apply to students in BES, CES, SLS, and ILS in self-contained programming and DCPS. Yeah, that is a goal. We would like for students, regardless of the restrictiveness of their setting, regardless of their educational environment, to be considered for this option if it makes sense for the individualized needs of the student, which I know that you get that.
And just to, okay, Representative Henderson did clarify. We will go back to those questions.
Yeah.
Yes, we will go back to the Mentimeter questions. And Christina, I know you have another question. If you could put that into the Mentimeter, or we can move that over for you to make sure that we get to it. But we do want to go ahead and have our other speakers share. And so we'll ask Maria Bloyer to go next and share her thoughts. Thank you. You're muted, Maria.
You would think after 6 years I would be good at that. So first, thank you. And I also have a lot of questions, so this is really helpful. And just to be very transparent, a lot of my questions are about implementation, guardrails. I'll be very transparent. As I read as I read Asi's recommendations, I really kept thinking a lot about what we experienced with the certificate of completion and what we experienced with the students going on the alternative assessment track, and how we didn't have good guardrails in place. And I worry a lot about that. So I just want to kind of largely frame my comments there. But I also don't think we can talk about the practical studies diploma in isolation from the other recommendations that Asi's made. So just really quickly, I want to fly through recommendations 1 through 5 and then get to the practical studies diploma. And I think the way I'll phrase my comments are questions and concerns, if that makes sense. I think it'd be helpful to be in conversation here. Um, First, I do think that it's obvious that a special education and disability rights lens informed a lot of the recommendations we see in the broader um, changes to the graduation requirements. I thought the recommendation number 1 around the 3 touch points is great for all students, and I think that's just a really good example. And I think having the 4 touch points, if the board does decide to go in this direction, I think the 4 touch points is good for our students with more significant disabilities. I'm excited about the capstone project. We love the optional endorsements. We think that's really good, and we're very, very glad that those would be available to students um, who are contemplating this practical studies diploma. And we're really excited about some of the flexibility in the math course progression that we have at recommendation 4. And we're excited about recommendation 5 because honestly, we think as reduced hours for graduation will result in more meaningful um, student learning there. And I think for students with disabilities, a lot of the recommendations before this point are very good for them, right? And increases a lot more flexibility. We're a little concerned about this practical studies diploma. Um, and the profiles today were very helpful in understanding. Um, I'm still confused about whether or not this is actually a diploma. Um, the recommendations from OSSI were a little fuzzy at a couple of different points about whether or not colleges would accept it. It's not clear to me whether or not it terminates eligibility under IDEA. I don't know if you want to stop and talk about that part for a second, and then
It's not intended to terminate eligibility for FAPE under IDEA.
okay, that's helpful. And then I know there's a question in the chat about what it will be used for. Is it the vision that it would be like a way for students to access other programming that you have to have a high school diploma for, but not necessarily a traditional high school diploma? I see you nodding.
Yes,
So,
yeah, it's intended to be an on-ramp to community college programming. And I saw a question about like, who have you talked to that says they're going to accept this, right? Like that's what can you
right.
actually do with this is a big question that we've gotten, right? And that's
Yeah.
part of our engagement as we continue on. We have not gotten like committed buy-in from folks, which is why you see the vague language in the proposal about it may not be accepted, which is
Mhm.
consistent with how other states have approached this too. You see that in North Carolina and Virginia too, where we as the state can't guarantee that somebody's going to take it,
Yeah.
right? But part of the implementation, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves on it, right? Like part of the implementation is doing that engagement to make sure that the entities that we need to accept it are open to accepting it and understand what it is.
And I think one of the challenges and differences is that, DC doesn't have a college program for students with intellectual disabilities. Think college isn't happening here in DC. The other thing that isn't happening is we don't have like Northern Virginia Community College or Montgomery College. We don't have a robust program for students with significant disabilities. And a lot of our kids go to the Montgomery College program or they go to the Nova program or maybe even the program at George Mason. So I would make sure that those programs have buy-in.
Yes, fully agree. We agree and understand that like this is not our students don't necessarily stay in the district and they shouldn't be limited to the options that are in the district, especially when there are such excellent programs in our surrounding counties like what you're referencing, Maria.
Yeah. And I think so I understand who you're trying to serve better from today's conversation than I did when I just read the report. Um, I will be very transparent and say that if those were the only students you were serving, I would not be nearly as anxious as I am. I am really concerned especially after what we saw with LEA's lack of buy-in on creating meaningful certificate of completion curricular standards, especially when we saw the sudden explosion when there was the alternative assessment. We could just put all the kids in alternative assessment. I'm really scared that instead of this being a way to have students who might be struggling to obtain a standard diploma have a viable option and a better future, I'm scared that this will be a program that almost acts as a barrier to a regular high school diploma for a lot of our kids with disabilities. And I don't hear, and I didn't see in the recommendations, and I put this in the mentee as well. How are you going to make sure that only the right students are in here? How are you going to make sure that, we're only putting our kids who really can't earn a diploma, a standard diploma in this? What's the pathway? I mean, I know when DCPS created the Certificate of Achievement standards, they had some guardrails there. And I don't love them, but they put something there. I don't see any guardrails to keep an LEA from going, great, we're just going to put all of our kids over here in this, and we're not going to do the hard work of accommodating and modifying. And then the other question I had is it wasn't clear to me, because it's mentioned at a couple of different places in the report, whether or not modifications and accommodations to graduation standards are available under the standard diploma. They're mentioned at a couple of different places, but it's not clear if modifications are only available to students with disabilities who are going after the practical studies diploma, or if, for example, we could substitute some standards for other standards for specific reasons for students who have certain disabilities on the standard diploma side.
Sure. I'm going to start on the accountability piece. We very much share that concern. This option is not intended to be pulling kids off of a diploma, off of the standard diploma. It's intended to serve the students who either are getting nothing or inappropriately getting an IEP certificate of completion, right? This diploma would not count towards ACGR. Okay. The federal requirements for ACGR only allow states to report on the regular high school diploma, which is the diploma that is earned by the preponderance of students in a state, or a state-defined alternate diploma, which this would not be, because that's limited to students with significant cognitive disabilities who take the ALT assessment. So this is not going, in its current design, is not going to boost graduation rates for LEAs, which is, I think, also a risk, because it's not really incentivizing LEAs to build up the curriculums that we need to see to be able to provide this diploma option. I'm going to be very transparent about that. But I think it also disincentivizes pulling kids off of a standard diploma track, right? And that's something that we're very committed to monitoring. We have a couple of ways, especially around like data transparency, that we would be able to keep an eye on this, and that includes incorporating this into our special education performance report and CEPR, and how we grade and analyze graduation rates. We can increase data reporting. When we do our graduation reporting, we can differentiate and aggregate how many students are receiving a standard diploma, practical studies diploma, or an IEP certificate of completion. And I know that I'm touching on like state level reporting. That's under our existing authority right now, right? This accountability piece is really important to us and to families and to LEAs. And that's something else that we want to be working on as part of the implementation with the working group. So we would want more feedback from folks on how they think we can effectively hold LEAs accountable for making these good decisions.
That's helpful. Can you talk a little bit about the modification of requirements under the standard diploma? Like, are they available?
Yeah, Dr. Jones, can you speak to that?
Because that's what I'm scared of. I'm scared of a student thinking they just need some modifications and then winding up, oh, the only way I can get this modification is to get the practical studies diploma and not the standard diploma, when it should be entirely possible to get that.
Yeah. The latter is correct. We do not intend to amend any of the processes related to students who are on the standard diploma track who would need modifications that have disabilities. So,
We don't intend, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying because I think this is super important. You don't intend to modify any of the existing?
no.
Okay.
I'm saying that the same processes that are in place for students that would have modifications made that have a disability that are currently pursuing the standard diploma, that would be the same process. Yes.
Okay. So a student who's pursuing the standard diploma would be able to continue pursuing the standard diploma if they needed to swap out music for dance.
Yeah. Maria, status quo on standard diploma, no
Yes.
change. No change
Okay.
contemplated on the standard diploma front. So if a student with a disability is going for those modifications, sure, there could be the possibility that they are pushed towards the practical studies. But to Christy's point about the disincentive here, I know folks are really concerned about this not counting as part of ACGR, but it's actually in our viewpoint, it is actually a disincentive for LEAs to be pushing students down rather than bringing them up.
Yeah, I agree about the disincentive, and I think LaJoy is absolutely correct. She made a point. You're talking about two different populations, and yes, and what I am scared of, and I know you don't want to make policy out of fear. I know that, but you know, the 1% cap didn't go so well for a minute, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so that makes me nervous.
Right. And I think that one of the things we've been thinking about internally around this is that this the practical studies diploma gets us 50% of the way there. There's still another 50% of the population to address, right? Like the practical studies diploma is designed for a specific group of students. It is not intended to address the district's entire need between IEP certificate and standard diploma. I think if you understand the diversity of special education students across this full student population, you understand that there's still room in there for more solutions. This is a starting point for a particular population, that there are other groups within this population that will require more work. This is a beginning point for us.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The fact that it doesn't count towards ACGR does create a disincentive to pushing students toward it, which I think is really important. And I do recognize better after today's conversation than I did when reading the report, the population you're trying to serve here. I'm nervous that the wrong kids are going to wind up in this bucket. And, I'm still waiting for the spring that I have working in this space where I do not have to explain to a family that their child is not actually getting a high school diploma, they're getting a certificate of completion. And I would encourage, no matter how this conversation continues, um, that OSSI really develop robust guidelines, metrics, and maybe even some hard and fast rules about like these kids you cannot push these kids towards this diploma. Full stop. Because it is hard enough to explain to somebody that their child's getting a certificate of completion, not graduating with a high school diploma. It would be even harder, I think, to have to explain the three. The three. And I don't want to have to do that. And thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Miss Rose Thompson, for doing that. I appreciate that. For those of us who with acronym problems. I guess my only other kind of really targeted question about all of this is, do you have a sense of what that guidance is going to look like? For LEAs, because I just think that's so important.
Yeah, yes and
Um,
no.
okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Maria.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know if you've heard this spiel from me before, but I'll give it for everybody. As part of the engagement that we've done with folks around diplomas generally, we have heard loud and clear that parents need more supports and more resources, and LEAs need more supports and more resources in making sure that things are being explained appropriately. I, like you, really hate hearing, we hear from families, like you said, every spring that are surprised that their child's not getting a diploma, and that is unacceptable. My team is working on developing guidance, parent-facing guidance, to be able to explain the differences between I'm going to say the credential options, because this is work that has to happen regardless of what happens with the practical studies diploma. I expect that we will be releasing guidance on this in the short term and then amending it once we figure out where we land with the practical studies work. But we're bifurcating this work where there's a thread of work that's going to happen based on what we have repeatedly heard in these engagements around parent and family experience. And we are working on that now. And then there's going to be more implementation work around the practical studies diploma. So as part of that, we plan to develop IEP team guidance, specifically guidance around what is this diploma, how it should be used, IEP team considerations for determining the appropriateness of a diploma option for each student. And I think we have some flexibility there where it can be a worksheet if we want to get really prescriptive about it. It can be considerations, it can be guidance. We have some flexibility there. And that, again, I keep saying, like, we'll do this in a collaborative process. And that's because we've seen through this that we really need to have educator and parent voices being centered in this to inform how those decisions are made, right? Some other of the guidance that so we're going to be issuing parent-facing guidance, LEA guidance, and IEP team specific guidance, as well as trainings and things like that to support people in actually making these decisions.
Yeah, and one addition there to Chrissy's list, Maria, is that we are more and more attempting to push out content that advises IEP teams on how to communicate these concepts to families and how to adequately engage them in the conversations around these shifts in their students' plans. And so by that, I mean specifically like practice-based guidance around how to explain at a parent-friendly way what this will mean for the students' longer term outcomes. And so I think that to Chrissy's point about this work is going to have to be done regardless of where the practical studies diploma lands. We intend to do that work as it is related to the certificate versus standard diploma this year, regardless, because we also know that this problem you're raising about families not knowing, about families being blindsided, about LEAs not being coherent on the topics, is indicative of this 20-year problem in the district of having an IEP certificate that not everyone understands. And so we this train sort of has to stop here on the misunderstandings, regardless of what happens.
One thing that I thought was important that Ebony raised, and I'm sorry, I think I accidentally just talked over somebody and I
No,
apologize.
it's me. So I should note my first name is Ebony Rose.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
It's not, you're not the only one who doesn't know that. I've been Ebony Rose for a long time, so I've given that disclaimer for a lot of people. It's okay. No worries. I think one of the things that's important to note, and I think it similar to the question that Kathy asked earlier about expectation around the engagements and what the task force knows, what the task force, what we have the opportunity to do. We know that this is an initial recommendation from OSSE. Our job as the task force, just like is to not only help the public understand what's in the proposal, but incorporate feedback and make suggestions that can improve. We do have the opportunity in our recommendation to capture things that will make the proposal stronger, including noting the importance of guidance, communication to families, communication and guardrails for IEP teams, what a LEA would need to be successful. If folks have ideas around incentivizing LEAs or what we need to do to support LEAs to build out aligned programming, that's important too. One of the reasons that this task force has a diverse membership is because we know for all the work that we're doing around high school graduation requirements, it is only meaningful. I shouldn't say it's only meaningful. It's super meaningful if we get it right for students in classrooms and they leave more prepared. It is even more meaningful if folks see that value and they look at it and they go, hey, um, students who graduate from DC public schools are great. They're prepared. They're going to be wonderful. All the things that, quite frankly, is socialization work we have to do across our school system, period. If we're going to be honest about it. That is why we're doing engagement with higher ed, and we have members from higher ed on the task force. That's why we're doing engagement with employers and unions and everybody else, because we do want to get it right, and we do want to. When I say we, I'm talking about our opportunity as a task force, and I recognize that I believe OSCE also wants to get it right.
I think so.
Okay, so in that spirit, we want to make sure that they understand the work that's being done here. So therefore, our kids are walking in and folks are saying, yeah, like we believe in you too. And so that socialization has to be done, period. I will stop talking for a moment. I know we also have Dr. Cepeda here, who is not just an educator and
Oh,
principal. And I don't
she's
say
the
just,
perfect one.
yes, I don't say just, she is the perfect one, but she also very much has a personal connection to this work. And I will be honest, Dr. Cepeda is the reason that was the person that first brought this to my attention, just having the honor of attending the graduations at Rivers Harris and bringing her students back. Like their graduation speakers often are their students, and they come back and they talk about the work they've done since graduation. They talk about their experience with Project Search. They talk about having to go and get their GEDs. They talk about what they're doing now in the workforce. And so when I hear this work, I think about my babies at River Terrace. I think about my babies at St. Coletta who can benefit from this. And so being very clear about the who, the how we can make it real, both the challenges and the opportunities is absolutely the conversation we want to have. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Cepeda, who knows more about this than I ever could, but just want to note that opportunity to encourage us to put forth how this can be the best thing it could possibly be, to acknowledge that it does not solve every issue, and we're going to have work to do around that. And to turn it over to Dr. Cepeda. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ebony Rose, for inviting me to be here. I'm super excited and humbled to be here in front of you. I come as a practitioner. I have been with the District of Columbia Public Schools since 2010. So for the past 15 years, I've been in the work, first at Mamie D. Lee, and for the past 10 years at River Terrace Education Campus as the founding principal of the school. And as Ebony Rose mentioned, this is something that I've been grappling with for the past 10 years because I know how important it is for our students with disabilities to have credentials that will help them become gainfully employed. In the event that you're not familiar with River Terrace Education Campus, we do have a workforce development program where the students come from other comprehensive schools and they receive training in soft skills and also vocational skills in the area of hospitality, health services, and horticulture. And we have some amazing students that I've even tried to hire for our schools as custodians or front office staff. However, because they don't have a high school diploma, they do not meet the floor criteria even for the unions to consider them as viable employees for those positions. So I saw the two profiles that were given in the presentation, and I'm really wondering what is the delineating factors or what will be the criteria to determine, who are the students that continue to be on the certificate track and who are the students that may be, as someone mentioned, inappropriately placed on the certificate track and then can move over to the practical studies diploma. And for me, that both of the students that were mentioned in the profiles, are students that we serve at our school, and I don't know what the criteria is, but um, right now, even at River Terrace, we are working very hard to get our students prepared for the National External Diploma Program, understanding that without a program that can be accepted at colleges or universities, um, opportunities are still limited for the students to be able to continue studies. Even right now with UDC has a workforce development and life skills program, and the students from River Terrace do not qualify because they don't have a high school diploma. So I'm wondering if this practical studies diploma would grant them access to that. I'm wondering if it would grant access to the FAFSA for them to be able to get financial aid for them to continue their studies elsewhere, whether it's at UDC or anywhere else they want to go. And I wonder what the level of complexity in the disability needs to be. I wonder what would be the baseline criteria academically. Are there any baseline criteria for adaptive skills? And so I think this is very meaningful work, and I'm super excited that Asi and all of you, are really engaging in this conversation and this work. But ultimately, maybe I don't have enough knowledge right now about the entire proposal, but it does not appear to me to be very different from the certificate. In DCPS, they do require the students to have 24 credit hours, right, for the certificate of diploma. But even with that, it does not grant them access to employment or, as I mentioned, financial aid and so on and so forth. So I think it's a great opportunity. I put some of my questions in the Menti as well as to what is the clear criteria that the IEP teams would use to discern, who stays on the certificate track and who has the opportunity to go into this practical studies diploma. I also wonder, what does then are the expectations for instruction? Because many of the students that we receive come at age 18 and stay with us until age 22. And when we receive them, it is evident to us that, there were missed opportunities instructionally at earlier grades for them to receive instruction with evidence-based practices that could really grant them access to reading skills and to math skills. So those are just my wonderings, and I know that you don't know me, so if you have any questions for me, I'm glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cepeda. We appreciate your perspective very much. And thank you also for putting some of your questions in the Mentimeter as well. I'm going to ask Haley if we can turn to those questions and ask our Aussie guests to field as many of those as we can. And I think Haley was saying there's a way to vote on kind of prioritizing questions. so that we make sure to answer in that order. But we have captured all these questions, and so we will work to get answers to all of them, even if we don't get to all of them tonight. And I do see Representative Johnson Law's hand up.
Can we, sorry,
Go ahead.
before to give Haley some time, because if I'm correct, we have about 20 questions. We anticipated that there would be a lot of questions. I have a feeling some of them are going to overlap. And so we'll let Haley kind of help moderate that to get as much answer as we possibly can, because a few things have come up more than once. I do want to be able to have maybe either Christy, Victoria, or Shamir respond to Dr. Cepeda's questions about the access as far as FAFSA, UDC, because I know some of that you have answers to. And so I think it's safe to start there to give Haley some time. And then I don't know if Representative Johnson Law has a question, but I want to, I do, since we allowed Maria's questions to be answered, I think it would be fair to do the same for Dr. Cepeda and then go to the next, if that's okay.
So what I would, just real quick, while you are talking about those questions, what I'm going to do is start voting on the Mentimeter. So everybody has 5 votes, and you can select the questions you want answered the most while you're listening in. And so those questions will go to the top. So I'm going to go ahead and start voting. Select the questions that are most pressing to you. We will have all the questions collected if we don't get to them all, but I'll start that now. And when we're done with the questions from Dr. Cepeda, then we can get to your most pressing questions.
So while you guys are voting, I'll get started on responding to Dr. Cepeda. And thank you so much for joining us. Your babies were the ones that we had in the forefront of our minds when we were designing this, because we know your school does so much amazing work with these students in preparing them. And the project search is incredible. We would love to replicate it. But we also know that your students are often leaving your school without a meaningful diploma to be able to continue on in the world. And that's really the problem that we're trying to address here. To your question about what's the differentiation between the certificate and the practical studies diploma, I think it would end up coming down to the ability to achieve the credits, post-secondary planning, post-secondary intentions, and essentially whether the student can achieve the rigor of the practical studies diploma. I know that's not a specific answer about what's the criteria, because at this point, we're not proposing hard and fast criteria, but that would be developed through the guidance and the policy that would come out of this, enable IEP teams to make appropriate decisions. I don't want OSSE to be setting really hard and fast rules around that to give IEP teams the maximum amount of flexibility. But that making those distinctions would come down to the guidance and the policy that comes out of this. We do not have specific buy-in from turning to the next question around what can kids do with this? We have a lot of intentions for what they can do with it. We don't have buy-in from specific programs, specific institutions around whether they would accept it and what students would be able to do with it. Just want to be transparent about that. That is something that we know is a very important part of the work. And I know it sounds like we'll do that part later, but we want to make sure that we're getting it right. So that is part of what we need to be doing as in terms of the whole implementation of this diploma. Dr. Cepeda, I also heard you say that you often inherit students who had missed opportunities at earlier grades. One of the things that we heard loud and clear in the stakeholder engagement process was around tracking for students and how decisions that are made for our children in earlier grades are affecting their ability to access the things they need later in life including through graduation. So that is something, one of the things that we need to be working on, regardless of what happens with practical studies diploma. We don't want to keep hearing that students in certain educational environments are literally not given the opportunity to earn the credits that they need in order to obtain a diploma. That is something that we need to be addressing wholesale. So we hear you on that too.
Thank you. I really appreciate those responses.
And I don't know. I know I see 6 people have voted. I don't know how many votes Haley is waiting for because I'm not in charge of that process. But I know we had LaJoy waiting. I see 7. We're getting close.
I can finish voting at any time. So if you wanna, I can finish it now, or if you wanna answer Representative Johnson Law's question, and then we could finish to give people a little extra time.
I actually don't know if it's a question or a comment, but I was just saying we could go
Oh,
to
It's a
Representative
question.
Johnson's Law. Yeah.
okay.
Thanks, Representative Thompson. Thanks, Haley. It was a question for Dr. Cepeda. Abria, come on, seriously, like for real. You've been quiet this entire time. Don't do that to mommy. That's not cool. Come on. Give me like 5 seconds. Dr. Cepeda, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm driving. I just picked up my kiddo from school. I'm a mom of a child who has a disability, and I was just wondering, how many students do you have in total at River Terrace?
Presently, we have 132. It's
32.
Yeah, it's fluctuated between
Okay,
100.
and then okay, and can you about like the types of disabilities that you're
Yes, you broke up a little bit, but the primary disability for our students are intellectual disabilities. So those include autism as well as multiple disabilities. Some students have medical complexities, but the primary disability is intellectual disability.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for everybody, because as we're talking about this, and I know Aussie had these in mind, would you consider their disabilities like most severe, or is it like mild? Is it moderate? Like, how would you describe the range of disabilities at River Terrace?
Well, I will say that the students in the lower grades, we have students in grades 3 through 12. Those have the most severe disabilities, and the students are transitioned to River Terrace when their IEPs cannot be fully implemented at their neighborhood school. However, our workforce development program and our Academy of Hospitality and Tourism, NAF Academy of Hospitality and Tourism, our application programs, and we recruit students that are on the certificate track from other comprehensive DCPS schools. And what I find in a lot of those applicants is that their disabilities are milder, and that they have some academic skills, but they've definitely been opportunities lost for them to be able to perform higher academically than when we received them at age 18. And so that was my statement from before, because I wholeheartedly believe that, and that's the reason why this year we have, with Glenn Starnes' support, we are piloting the National External Diploma Program, because the students on this program do have academic abilities that with remediation and support can earn the external diploma program, which then grants them the same access as another student that receives an OSCE diploma. It just takes a little bit longer. So our hopes are that, and what I'm thinking is that, with some clear guidance as to, for the practical studies diploma, students need to have certain level of academic abilities, be able to read at maybe the second grade level, third grade level, be able to do math, That then really differentiates who remains on the diploma, on the certificate track, and who has the ability to maybe go a little bit higher. But again, for me, the concern is
Mhm.
if the practical studies diploma doesn't give them access to the same post-secondary opportunities that a regular diploma gives a student that is on the regular diploma track, then
Mhm.
there's opportunity for better equity there.
Okay, and then one last question so we can get to the mentee.
Mhm.
Do you think the kids who are milder, if they had some changes, right? Or maybe I don't know if it like substitutions is the right word, but like maybe like a set of recommendations to maybe to help them get to a standard diploma so that way they won't necessarily be in a practical studies diploma. Do you think that would be helpful?
Um, that's a difficult question to answer. I will answer with the approach that I know I would like to take, right? I wish that there was more norm expectations as to what special education instruction looks like in the classroom and what evidence-based practice and highest leverage practices the teachers are facilitating. Even with our teachers, we provide a lot of professional development because oftentimes special educators do not have the pedagogy on how to teach reading and how to teach math. And so I'm not blaming anyone, but there's certainly an opportunity for our teachers to be better equipped to meet those diverse needs of students so that they can still teach them how to read and they can still teach them how to do math. And then that gives us then a better opportunity to say, we have done intensive instruction around reading and around math, and the students have not been able to perform as the disabled peers, but they have shown that with time and extra practice, they will be able to meet the requirements. Let's give them a path that gives them more time and those tier 3 interventions um, more intensively so we can close those learning gaps, right? And again, I'm speaking of those students that are more on the mild side of the intellectual disabilities and not the students that are our younger students that may have medical complexities, that may be nonverbal, that may not be able to give consistent responses.
Thank you, Dr. Cepeda. Thank you so much. Representative Henderson and Representative Thompson, I'll turn it back to you and Haley.
Okay, thank you. I am gonna have Haley move us forward. I do wanna, um, I think Haley's ready, in all fairness. And some of these things have started to come up because we felt like there would be um, some coalescence around most of the important things. I do want to remind folks it is almost 6:20. I think we have this meeting until 7 o'clock. So we want to get to as much conversation as we can today. Anything we do not get to, one of the beauty for things is that we will furnish all of the questions and we can get responses. We're pretty good about that. Haley is exceptionally good about that. Representative Henderson is exceptionally good about that. I am less good about that, but that's why you have a team and get responses too. And if there are other thoughts after, it is an open invitation and an open conversation. So I hope that my spiel gave Haley enough time to jump in and help us moderate.
Absolutely. So these questions that you can see on the screen are the top ones. I think we have these on the top row were the most popular, and we can go down from there and answer as many as we can. So this first one, has there been engagement with higher education institutions in terms of, oh, I can make it bigger, in terms of how they would view or evaluate prospective students with the practical studies diploma?
The simple answer here is not, we have not had direct engagement with the specific higher institution or higher education institutions that we all think of, like PG Community College, UDC. That direct engagement has not occurred yet. However, when we were developing the proposal, we looked at what kinds of diplomas and what kinds of requirements that those institutions accept currently and how they are currently running those programs. And we believe that what we proposed would fit within the criteria that they currently look at. But again, not direct engagement. And we hear folks loud and clear, and like that's certainly a part of what this needs to contemplate.
Okay. Our second question. This feels like a lot of work left to the LEAs, not just in supporting students, but also in developing new programming and partnerships. Can you speak to the division of labor between OSSE and LEAs?
Sure. It does feel like a lot of work. However, when we developed this proposal, we leveraged, we looked at OSSE's course collection data to make sure that when I'm giving examples about courses that could be substituted, the kinds of courses that we imagine would be substituted, that those exist in our LEAs currently, and they do. And we know that there are good models out there that can be leveraged to help build capacity. And this is something that I forgot to address earlier when I was speaking to Maria Valera's question about what guidance are we going to issue. One of the things that we have to look at is how do LEAs need to build capacity to provide the programming that we're talking about. Like we do hear that, but we also believe that there is a strong existing capacity within LEAs to provide what this contemplates.
Sorry, there we go. Okay, what percentage of students do you envision this being for? Why is the option on the table for the alternate diploma versus allowing LEAs or IEP teams to modify the course requirements, I'm presuming for the standard diploma?
Sure. I don't have a specific percentage. I can tell you that last year, no, not last year, in federal fiscal year 23, which means school year 22, 23, Victoria, correct me if I'm right or wrong on that.
23, 24, 23,
23,
24. School year 23, 24 is the data she's referencing.
Okay. We had a graduation rate for students with disabilities of 57-ish% that dropped from 78%. So I see an opportunity there for about 20% of our students to be that previously could get a diploma. And then when post-COVID diploma flexibilities were eliminated, our percentage has dropped 20%. So we want to see that 20% of students addressed here. Recognizing that's like a real rough estimate. We don't have actual data on that, but that's what we're looking at. There we've seen significant drops in graduation rates and significant increases, a correlating increase in dropout rates. Oh, why is the option on the table for an alternate diploma instead of allowing for IEP teams to just change courses? Based on our stakeholder engagement, that was not an option that folks were really interested in, which I was also a little surprised. We heard a lot from stakeholders that there were concerns about allowing for too much flexibility with IEP teams and LEAs, allowing them to fully modify and substitute courses for a standard diploma. There was a great appetite for maintaining significant rigor with the standard diploma, and folks felt like allowing LEAs to change courses would be antithetical to that rigor.
What will the criteria for selection into the practical studies diploma be?
Sure, we addressed this a little bit, but there won't be hard and fast criteria. We envision having IEP teams have considerations when they're making these decisions. But as Representative Thompson said, if that's a recommendation that this task force wants to bring forth, that there is hard criteria, OSSE would have to consider that, right? Like if my answers on these questions are insufficient, please use that to inform your recommendations.
How many students are anticipated to go through this track?
Yeah, that's similar to the earlier question. We really don't have like a number in mind, but we do want LEAs to have flexibility to be able to serve those students who are getting nothing or getting something that is not serving them well.
How does an LEA know a student cannot obtain a standard diploma, disability classification, test scores, a judgment of the IEP team?
Yeah, this is currently and would be up to the IEP team to determine. IEP teams currently determine what diploma a student will receive. And by that, I mean whether they're going to be on a certificate track or a diploma track. And I wouldn't want to limit this based on a specific disability classification or like specific assessment scores. We want this to be flexible to meet the individualized needs of students, consistent with the intent of IDEA and our LEAs.
Why isn't this an option for MLL, SL, IFE as well? There are many students who graduate without being able to read and write in English on even a sixth grade level. This diploma could help non-special education students as well.
Yeah, we've heard that question quite a bit. So this diploma is uniquely designed to address concerns for students with disabilities, because of the nature to address a gap for them because of the nature of their disability. So that is again a recommendation that we've heard from folks, and that's something we would welcome in your final recommendations too.
Are world language and math the main obstacles to special education students who might be eligible for a standard diploma not able to get it?
We talked a lot about this in stakeholder engagement when we were talking about how to handle credit requirements. World language and math were two of the popular ones that came up, especially world language, which is why we've proposed eliminating that in this proposal. But again, students, I didn't say this earlier, but students who are interested in taking a world language course could take that still as part of their electives. We're not saying that we're discouraging those kiddos from taking courses that they're interested in at all. But world language and math are certainly the most popular ones that we've discussed.
How have parents of potentially eligible students over the years ahead been consulted?
Yeah, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement around including families. We talked with our state advisory panel for special education quite a few times. I'm actually late for their meeting. I'm gonna have to jump in about 5 minutes to give them a similar presentation to keep them up to date on what we're proposing here. And as part of our general engagement, I know that Superintendent Mitchell and Dr. Jones spoke with education councils and across the wards to get their input too, and the DCPS LSAT collective too. But that feedback that was garnered from the education councils and the LSAT collective came from the general engagement on the comprehensive proposal, and we used what was garnered from that to help inform this.
With both diplomas, will OSSE raise expectations and match districts around the nation with regard to tardies adding up to absences? 30 days unexcused. Okay, this isn't really to do with the practical studies diploma, but if you would like to answer it, it's more about 30 days unexcused is triple the amount allotted. Most districts are 10%.
Yeah, that's not part of our considerations specific to this topic, but I will say that folks on my team are very passionate about reminding me that in order to graduate students, we have to have them at school. So we understand that as part of the guidance and the work that we're going to do around this, so we have to address the attendance problem too, which, there's a myriad programs and initiatives around the district to be able to address that.
LEA and IEP teams involvement is so important. I couldn't tell if the decision will be DCPS or school-based. Is it concerning to leave at the school level since so many students transfer?
Yeah, this would be an IEP team decision. And using guidance coming from OSSE, we would have to leverage our accountability measures and our monitoring measures to ensure that IEP teams are making appropriate decisions and LEAs are appropriately supporting IEP teams in making those decisions. I hear what you're saying here, and it's on our radar too.
If students are expected to receive the same number of credits to practical studies, why not call it a standard diploma for students with disabilities?
around that question, do you mean why not give them a standard diploma, or do you mean around the naming of it? Because the naming of it was really tough. We talked quite a bit about how important the name was. And I'd also love feedback on that too in your recommendations.
I don't know if the person who wrote
Oh,
this
I'm here.
question wants to
Yep, I
clarify.
got you.
Okay.
Right here. Yep. Why not call it a standard diploma?
So are you saying,
If they're expected to get the same number of credit hours, I believe you all lifted that they have to pursue the same number of credit hours, while they have to receive it more from the elective side versus the world language or what was it? World language. And it looks like that's it when I'm looking at this chart again. Is it not? They're not meeting the requirements of a diploma, a high school diploma?
I'm going to rephrase back to you what I think your recommendation could be is, can this be considered a pathway to the standard diploma? Like give them a standard diploma. I'm splicing hairs here on why not call it a standard diploma? Why not give them a standard diploma, right?
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so throughout our stakeholder engagement there, and this is true of both the engagement around the comprehensive proposal and around this, folks said that they wanted one standard diploma and not multiple pathways to it. They wanted one standard diploma. So this proposal is responsive to that feedback. And this is a question that's come up a lot. And I think it can also be something that you would consider addressing in your recommendations back to OSSI.
Okay, and so I have my hand raised because I had a question around is the expectation that with the information that's been provided, we are proposing solutions, alternatives to what you all have put before us. I guess in my mind, you all were presenting to us things that were close to finalizing. But based on everything that you all have explained this evening, particularly around this practical studies diploma, there's a lot of room for more research and questions to be asked before presenting any final suggestions.
That is correct. And I'm sorry. I just want to be fair to everyone because we do have at least 27 questions in the Menti and questions in the chat. And so I want to make sure we get answers to all the questions. And I want to reiterate, and I will reiterate this as many times as I possibly can. What OSSI has provided us is the first step. It is a first step. It is not a final step. Not just for us as a task force, but for the conversation broadly. One of the conversations we have had with OSSI about the practical studies, which might be some helpful context for folks as far as like why certain things haven't already been done, is OSSI did do engagement, and Dr. Jones, please correct me if I am misspeaking at any point, but OSSI did do engagement, and this was one of the things that came up later in the conversation. And so first, we should know that as a task force, our job is to understand what's in the proposal, but also to improve the proposal. We do have the opportunity to do that for the public, to help them understand what the proposal is, to bring back ideas we hear from the public, and to do the work to put forth what we want to see. As the task force forms its recommendation, that recommendation will be shared with the board and will be shared with OSSI. It will also be shared publicly. OSSI will then take what comes from the task force, and if there's anything else that the board chooses to add or offer, and then they will come back and say, hey, here is what we would like to be the final recommendation for the board to consider. We are nowhere close to that yet. And so I say that because I want to be very clear that there is an opportunity here not to say yes to everything that is before us, but to get to a place where folks go, yes, this is a much better than anything we have in our current reality. And so I want to make sure that we understand that our responsibility as members of this task force, and that includes board members, is to do work to improve and build on a conversation that OSSE has started, not one that is finished. And so I think that's really important to say. We will say similar things at the public engagements. There will be similar types of caveats during the survey. There will also be, it's also one of the reasons we're asking you, if you want to lend your voices, because we know that not enough people have been engaged in this conversation, and it can benefit for more clarity, more specifics, more input. I'm going to turn it back to Haley to get us through as many questions as possible, because I want to make sure that we just get as much information as possible this evening, not because it's the final, but just because at every point, it's just a lot of information.
Yeah,
And I want to make sure we're getting those questions answered. So I'm coming back to you, Haley.
I'm going
to
to jump in real quickly just to say that Christy Weaver Harris has to leave to go to another meeting, and to thank her for answering so many questions and for her presentation. We really appreciate you being here. Victoria is still on and will continue fielding questions. Thank you again, Christy.
Thank you,
guys so much.
Christy.
Thank you all
Thanks,
so much for
Christy.
inviting me here.
Thank
I'm happy to
you.
answer questions as we continue. I'm really looking forward to getting your recommendations, and I appreciate all the questions and all the input that you guys have shared tonight. So thanks again, and I'll see y'all later.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you. So we will continue with these Mentimeter questions. I will say any of them that we don't get to, or any questions that were put in the chat that we did not get to, we will record those and get you answers to those as well. So we will get to as many as we can now, but we only have about 20 minutes left. What kind of guardrails can we use to ensure that students who earn a standard diploma with supports don't get pushed towards the practical studies diploma?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Victoria Glick. I'm the director of SPED over at OSSE. For those who are not familiar with me, thanks for letting me stand in for Christy. I am by far not a substitute for her extensive knowledge on this topic, but I will do my best with you all tonight. So I think we covered this a little bit around the guardrails. We talked about the accountability measures that OSSE believes we can put in place. Christy discussed a bit around our ability to pull in data, watch what LEAs are doing here, hold them accountable through our special education accountability systems. I do want to note here that we always welcome feedback about how OSSE can, or how the public would like to see OSSE holding LEAs more accountable, and the ways that our community would like to see that done. The federal government establishes really clearly for state agencies what accountability measures we can implement, but it takes local action to change and enhance those things. And so feedback welcome in this space if what you heard here tonight from Christy wasn't quite enough for you.
We need to address the white elephant in the room. Kids are graduating without being able to read and write. Families are suing around the country. This diploma helps not inflate our grad rates and support kids. So that's more of a comment. What assurance do you have that post-secondary programs will accept the practical studies diploma? Christy addressed a similar question earlier that, that work is still going to have to be socialized around, but they did do research around other similar diplomas in other states. So we will move on. Will students with disabilities have until age 22 to meet the requirements for the practical studies diploma?
Yes. Yes.
Alternatives or modifications to grad requirements are clearly contemplated under the practical studies diploma, but it is unclear if they are available under the standard diploma. So I think this was discussed quite a bit earlier.
Yep.
I don't know if we feel like that question got answered. What percent of students with disabilities or percent of the total student body does this contemplate serving? Again, I think we had a similar question that's something you don't kind of have a specific prediction for yet. Are the changes to math and world language enough to meet the needs of these students? We feel like that one already got answered.
I think that's more of a question that probably needs to be thought through by the task force and opinions given by members of the task
No,
force.
could I, that's my question along with the other ones.
Mhm.
I'm just curious if these
Mhm.
modifications are sufficient to address what you're trying to, so we might not be able to answer it right now, but I don't feel like that has been answered. Yeah, that if those particular things could be addressed in modifications in the standard diploma. So I'm just putting it out there. I would like to say I didn't feel that I understood the answer. So we can do it later or some other way.
And maybe it's and both, Kathy. I
Mhm.
um I hope this is okay. I will say one of the things we have not done, we did hear testimony previously of examples of why the world language was particularly a challenge. And similar to the profiles, it was, I would say, clarifying for me. Happy to share that with the task force, both the video and the written testimony. And the reason have also kind of follow up on some of their thinking around this and who it would address. I would also, if it is okay, and Principal Cepeda, feel free to say no to me. But from what you are seeing with your students, especially since you said both of these are profiles that you are familiar with, um, would you say that these particular changes to math and world language are helpful? Um, and are there other common barriers that you see with regards to the requirements that we should consider?
Certainly. So I do believe that the world language is helpful and having some of the more simplified math will also help. But I also would like to say that the emphasis really needs to be on reading because without the students, and someone mentioned that before, that students are exiting without the ability to read, right? That's what's going to give access to all of it. So to answer your question, yes, I do believe that these would help. I don't know that they're enough. And I don't know. I want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing. Um, Same concern as other people have expressed before. This just seems like another path of keeping students, it brings them closer to some post-secondary opportunities, but not close enough, right? To have the same quality of life that their non-disabled peers may have. And so, um, if in fact, I saw on the slide earlier that it would be for students in the CES, SLS, ILS programs. Those are all the same contained programs that right now in DCPS are on the certificate track. So I just wonder, are we just moving them from one side to the other, but not really creating that equitable path beyond um, what they can access after they exit DCPS. So forgive me if I'm not saying it right, but the concern is still there for me. I think that in order for it to be equitable, the students would have to have access to the post-secondary opportunities that their non-disabled peers have. And I think someone mentioned, why not call it, a state diploma or a regular diploma if we're saying that they're going to do just as much work for this practical studies diploma as the students that are going to be on the regular diploma.
That's helpful. And I want to be clear. You're not saying the wrong thing. I really was looking for just if like if we are whatever is proposed, if these are if you see these as relevant, not to deny all of the realities of our current DC landscape, of the world, of all the things that are true about what you said, and any and all of the very real and legitimate concerns that people are raising around implementation. I want to be very clear. I don't think anyone is well, I will speak for myself, and others can speak for themselves. But my read is that, like myself, others are not trying to dissuade folks that this is a magic bullet.
Yeah.
I also don't think Aussie is under any illusions that it is magically going to be accepted around from everybody, and there will be work to do, right? Um, Even if the proposal is perfect, that would still be true. I think what is really helpful is when you're saying like, okay, the world language, and I'm not saying don't continue to state that because we don't ever want to forget those things, but the world language is something that is commonly a barrier due to, certain intellectual disabilities or uh, the different types of math. We might not want to require a kid to take Algebra 1. I think that type of feedback is helpful too. So don't think of it as wrong. Like it wasn't it wasn't a trick question. And if you have other thoughts, and that is again to everyone, please share them. But I just wanted to try to start to get an answer to some of the questions around, does this meet real needs, in all fairness? And that's why I said you can tell me no.
Yeah. Well, again, I really appreciate the opportunity to advocate for the group of students that I've been serving now for 23 years, 15 with DCPS, but prior to that, um, someone asked the question about who ultimately makes the decision. And so, the same individuals that are making the decision for the students that may go into the diploma track will be making the decision for the students to go into the practical studies diploma. And so what what differentiates, right? Like, what is the criteria? I just wholeheartedly believe there needs to be some clear criteria. I sit in IEP meetings, right? And sometimes there's a difference of opinion, even with members of the IEP team. And so this is someone's life that we're talking about. And so some really clear guidance as to, the students have to be able to read at a certain level, and the students have to be able to do some level of math, and the students may have to have some level of independence so that it's not a subjective decision that is being made by the IEP team that will affect someone's entire life, right? So I know that it was mentioned that it would be left to the IEP team to make the decision as to in which direction the students will go. I think that needs to be maybe unpacked a little bit more.
Thank you, Principal Cepeda. Bridget, is this a response to the question? You are on mute if it is.
My bad. I just wanted to shed some light regarding Dr. Cepeda talking about equity. Most of the community colleges around the country do not require world language. So if we're putting kids on the same, I'm sorry, on the same level in regards to reading and writing, many of them will require, regardless of what credential they have when they leave high school, they will require them to do an entry exam for reading and math. And if they don't meet that criteria, they do this at UDC and Nova, and they'll put them in a prerequisite class to provide them that equity. So if the through line is really thinking about, is this diploma going to provide students with disabilities the same access, it would be a different path. But I had asked the question about checking in with Virginia and their students at Nova with their alternate diploma, if they're able to pass those math and reading tests, do have access. So if our questions are around access, it's important that when we present these, I've had to have the conversation with the student to say, I'm sorry, you won't be able to go to UDC or go to a workforce development program. You'll have to get your GED. What you got was not sufficient. And lots of people were very confused about dismissing UDC as not being an institution of higher education, which it is. And so telling families that those things are available. And so I think around the world language, that is a really easy one to say is not necessarily to be considered for a high school diploma, because community colleges don't require it for entry. Many of them don't require it to matriculate. And so, as a mother of a son who just got his doctorate this spring, he struggled with world language. He did have an IEP, and he got the standard diploma in Virginia. He was going for the advanced, but we worked real hard to get that C in Spanish so he could get the standard diploma. He got his doctorate this weekend, or this spring, so it didn't matter as much. But for some students, the world language is something, this is just anecdotal, my personal experience. It was something he struggled with, but minored in sign language in college. And so it's just a thing that the world language is something that at least I can say clearly the community college systems don't require it. So it does lend itself to equity.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ms. Jackson. I think it's really important to note that I wanted to kind of couple some of the comments I've heard around the world languages and then the math, and what Dr. Cepeda is saying about the academic achievement piece. And what you mentioned, Ms. Jackson, around the entrance exams at these community colleges. It's important to remember that this diploma is not designed to be the solution to the achievement rates for students with disabilities in math and reading in the district. I see folks talking a little bit about that on the chat, but rather to ensure that workforce access and secondary education or post-secondary education access. And that if we can keep more students engaged in school and improve the quality of our education, then we can ensure they can pass those entrance exams. But a diploma option in and of itself, no matter what it is, will not change the quality of instruction. So we have to sort of, I believe very much that, yes, I'm in agreement with Ms. Henson's comment. Like, we should absolutely be talking about reading as a major component of this. If it is not strong enoughly addressed in the proposal, in terms of the practical studies diploma requirements, please provide that comment back to OSSI in the recommendation report. I think we would be very responsive to that. But do remember that the quality of instruction is an entirely separate and very important conversation. And much of what we are working to do here is to keep students who otherwise are dropping out of our system or for whom are not leaving with a functional credential have that. One of the things that I know Christy touched on earlier, but I do want to reiterate, is that when we initially created this proposal, it was with the intention of matching what other states are offering in terms of a credential of this type. I saw some discussion about Virginia's version, about Maryland's version in the chat. And so that when we do socialize with our surrounding county institutions, that we are able to parallel it to what they are accepting from surrounding counties. So that's a long way of saying we want to be able to go to Nova, go to PG County and say, hey, Montgomery College folks, like this is the equivalent of what you are receiving from Maryland graduates, from Virginia graduates, accept our children too. And then we, in parallel, need to do the hard work in our system to bring up the rigor and quality instruction that will ensure they can pass those entrance exams that we were just talking about here.
Thank you, Victoria. Because of time, we are going to end our discussion for tonight. But to reiterate, this is not the end of our discussion of this topic or our work on this topic. That will continue. I do want to be sure to thank Victoria. Thank you, Dr. Cepeda. Thank you, Maria Bloyer, for being here and helping us to work through the many questions that we have. We do want to make sure that everyone knows that we welcome ongoing input. So if things come to you after this meeting, please email the co-chairs so we can collect everything as this work continues. We will do our best to address all the questions that we didn't get to from the Mentimeter. I think we have had a very rich discussion, and I'm very appreciative of all the input. For wrapping this up, I do want to remind you of the next task force meeting, which will be December 18th. In that meeting, we plan to report back to you, as we said before, report back to you about the engagement events that we do earlier in the month of December. We're also going to talk more about the core course requirements, the changes that have been proposed for science, social studies, and math. You will get a follow-up email from Haley with reminders about this. And you will also get an email from Andrew Roof about the social media campaign, if you're interested in helping out on that, and also the flyers for the engagement events that we would love for you to share with your networks. And I will ask Representative Thompson if she has anything else she wants to add before we close.
No, just thanks and good night. Please, if you do have delayed thoughts, reactions, or something you're like, I thought about saying this, I didn't want to say it to the group, whatever it is, we do invite, conversation. So please do that. We also will be sharing and are working with OSSI and DCPS and DME and others other types of engagement opportunities, as well as like getting out to see some of the things, because I do know folks have different expertise and experience on the task force, and we want to make sure that we are all familiar, not just with the recommendations, but the realities around us to be able to best inform what we put forth to the public and to OSSE. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, not just for tonight, but for the things that led up to this conversation and the continued conversations to come. And with that, I believe we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.